Hello, welcome. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Leila Wolcher. I'm the Events and Operations Director with CMCP. A few housekeeping notes just before we get started. Today's program is 90 minutes long. The agenda includes a 45-minute video, then will be followed by a Q&A with the speakers. So please keep in mind that this is a meeting format, meaning that everyone's audio and video is enabled. We can hear you and we can see you. So please just keep that in mind. During the video, if you don't mind keeping your audio muted, feel free to have your video on, but if you don't mind having your audio muted, once the Q&A has begun, please turn on your camera, please turn on your audio in order to participate. And then we will, as I said, there's a Q&A, so if you have a questions, feel free to pop it into the chat. And the moderators will then voice your question for you, and the speakers will answer. So with that, allow me to introduce Robert White, the Executive Director of CMCP.
Hi, thank you, Leila, and welcome and Happy New Year, everyone. I hope you are starting your new year with all the craziness, with a sense of invigoration of getting through 2020. I'm very happy on behalf of CMCP to be able to kick off this collaboration with continuing education of the bar. I think, and the education is obviously an important part of both development of lawyers and of our role in working with our clients and colleagues. So I think the topic today is an excellent one for us to pursue. With that, I want to hand it over to our collaborator in chief, Raheel Hayat, Content Development Attorney at CEB. Thank you all so much for joining.
Thanks, Robert. Appreciate it. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. As Robert mentioned, my name is Raheel Hayat. I'm one of the content development attorneys at CEB. I would like to welcome everyone here, along with my colleague Arzu, who's also with us and will be moderating the Q&A with me. I also wanted to thank Elizabeth and Joanne, the two speakers, who've taken some time to do the watch party with us today. So thank you. I know it's strange times right now, so we appreciate you taking some time to do this with us. And we're hoping, the hope around this series of programs, so, well, first let me introduce CEB. If you're not familiar with CEB, we are affiliated with the University of California, and we essentially serve the California legal community by creating practice-oriented tools and legal resources. You know, we have a community-driven mission. So we really focus on collaborating with outside agencies like the Minority Council to hopefully, you know, get these resources across to all California legal attorneys. And so when we were first approached by CMCP for this partnership, we were really excited because the goal for us was to essentially try to see if there's an interest in the legal community to do more teaching and more courses. And we were particularly interested in working with the Minority Council because one of the things, as a person of color myself, I have noticed is that we don't have a lot of attorneys of color doing these sort of trainings. And so we really wanted to expand our platform and then also take this opportunity with CMCP to really hopefully create a series of trainings that people can watch and then hopefully get inspired to do more CLEs and trainings from them. So that was sort of the whole point behind this collaboration. So we're really excited to host this program, and we're hoping that that all of you are able to get the most out of it. With that, I wanted to introduce our executive director. She recorded a video, and then she wanted to send a message to all of you. So, Leila, if you don't mind playing that, please.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kelly Lake. I'm the CEO and executive director at CEB. Thank you so much for your interest in joining our CEB contributor community. If you become a CEB contributor, you will be joining hundreds of attorneys and judges across the state who work every day directly with our content attorneys developing practical legal guidance for use in our various products. That's content that is used in California's agencies, courts and in private practices to deliver legal services to ordinary Californians, small businesses, and large corporations. CEB is one of the early pioneers of CLE and legal publishing here in California, and for over 70 years, we have been inextricably and deeply interwoven into the very fabric of the legal profession. Your contributions will be added to one of the most diverse, thought-leading collections in California law. They'll be used by your peers in practice and by the courts, serving a small but important role in the consistent and accessible administration of justice. We hope this series will provide an opportunity to add new members to our network. We are looking to add talented rising stars to our roster of speakers and authors. And like everything else that we do at CEB, this bootcamp has a super practical orientation. You will learn basic CLE teaching techniques, techniques that can help you grow your practice and your brand. I hope to see you at the bootcamp, but even if you can't make it, then I would love to hear from you. Please connect with me on LinkedIn or email, and share with me your thoughts about what we can be doing better at CEB to support the movement to make the legal profession here in California a more inclusive and diverse one. Stay safe. Thank you to the CMCP for this opportunity to collaborate, and thank you.
Great, thanks. And so, as you heard, we're hoping that by attending these series of programs, you're able to learn a few tricks about how to be a better public speaker, but also hopefully get interested in teaching some courses and really just learn some tricks about how to do, how to increase visibility and also promote and market yourself better. So with that, I would like to introduce my colleague Arzu, who's going to talk a little bit about today's training and briefly introduce the speakers.
Thank you, Rahil. This is Arzu Bakhtra. I'm one of the content development attorneys with CEB. As a female lawyer of color myself, I'm very proud of this CEB CMCP collaboration. The first video that you'll watch, which is going to be followed by a Q&A, is the topic is using teaching as a tool to become a subject matter expert and grow your practice. We have the two speakers today that you can pose your questions to. Joanna Nieves, who I've known for years, is the owner and founder of the Nieves Law Firm, which is located in Oakland, California. She specializes in criminal defense. And then we have Elizabeth Yang. She's located in Los Angeles, California, and she's the owner and founder of the law and mediation offices of Elizabeth Yang. And she specializes in a multitude of things. She specializes in intellectual property, business law, state planning, and family law. And she is fluent in Mandarin Chinese. And I'm very proud of both of them and all that they've achieved.
Okay, so I think the next thing we're going to do is play the program. The program should be around 45 minutes. So go ahead and enjoy it. And then afterwards, we will have an open Q&A session with the speakers, and we will be moderating. So enjoy the program, and we will see all of you in about 45 minutes. Thank you.
So to start off with, my name is Elizabeth Yang, and again, I'm the owner and CEO of the Law and Mediation Offices of Elizabeth Yang.
Great. Hi, thank you for joining. I am Joanna Nieves. I'm the owner and managing attorney of the Nieves Law Firm, where we take the criminal out of criminal defense. So in terms of where I have narrowed my focus, it's definitely criminal law with the subsection of post-conviction relief, women in business.
So after doing a lot of IP courses, I started doing business law courses as well. And then now my main area of expertise is actually family law.
And one thing before you go on, when I see webinars and engagements, one thing that we didn't talk about too was YouTube. and how the webinars that you create and the virtual engagements that we can do, we can also, and I know our firm does, incorporate just live videos or pre-recorded videos, simple FAQs on a YouTube channel. And I know that's something that we share not just on YouTube, but we'll post on the website as well. And so that ongoing dissemination of information is continuously happening.
Yeah, YouTube is great for sharing. You know, we will link the YouTube videos to our websites. So YouTube and also Facebook Live is really popular right now. You know, so some of the MCLE webinars that I've done, or even just seminars that I've done, have been through organizations, you know, just like Joanna and I both participate in. So there's a lot of annual conventions. Like one is the NAPABA convention. That's the National Asian Pacific American Bar Association. They have a big convention every year. Another one is the NAP annual convention, National Association of Asian American Professionals. They also have a big convention every year. And this year, everything's going to be virtual, you know. Next slide. Why do we want to teach? So topics of interest versus Black letter law. So, you know, a question that has been asked of us is, what do we say yes to? You know, because both Joanna and I, we get a lot of inquiries to speak from different organizations on different topics. For myself personally, I say yes to, number one, the topics that I have experience in.
Yeah, sure. And I completely agree with the experience aspect. I mean, one of the things we're going to touch on later, too, is about the different MCLEs that we attend. And I myself have attended like a 6-week or 6-part training program in family law before, because there's sometimes so much crossover. I want to be alert and aware to issues that in criminal court that might have a collateral effect on family court decisions. For instance, you know, crimes of domestic violence and how that might affect a custody dispute in family court. I want to know those things, but I'm not going to teach on them. I attend them, I learn, and that's helpful for my practice. But in terms of what I decide to teach on, it's those things that I'm invested in on a day-to-day basis, that I'm going beyond just like, oh, I've done 1 or 2 appearances on this, but really I've invested time and energy into researching it, practicing it, and being successful in it. Because we also don't want to go and teach on something that we haven't kind of mastered the approach, and, you know, we're being told like, you know, the pleadings weren't done properly, or we're not getting the good results. And, you know, maybe you shouldn't be up there expressing like how you put that together because it wasn't the right way. There are benefits to sharing things, you know, lessons learned and mistakes that you've kind of taken on and changed, but making sure that you're sharing things that you are really experienced in. I completely agree. And of course, topics that you yourself find engaging. There are aspects of the law and even within, you know, criminal law that I don't necessarily find engaging for myself. You know, I don't have a big juvenile practice. That is something has not been an area where I've invested a lot of my personal time. I have staff that has spent time with juvenile, but I'm not going to go and teach on juvenile law. And you know, what I found is that my desire to teach on post-conviction relief really stems from an interest in that subject matter. I feel that there are laws that have been passed, like statutorily codified, and Supreme Court decisions that have given relief to people who are facing denial of immigration benefits and immigration consequences. And those are things that we as defense counsel in criminal cases can advocate for before they're put in a precarious situation to prevent that from happening. And we have a skill set that we've developed to go and undo prejudicial error that's been caused by other people in the past. And I find that engaging. I find it something that I'm passionate about, and also just useful. Like I want to teach on things that are useful to the community, and not just the community at large, but also the legal community, because the way I direct, for instance, my state bar MCLE, it's directed towards other attorneys so that they can issue spot for their clients. They can issue spot for their colleagues. They can identify these things and know, okay, here is what this problem is, and here is a potential remedy for it. And either, I've got this within my practice area to do, or I know who to send you to get this relief so you can come back here and we can take care of the next step in your case.
I think, it depends on the audience that we're speaking to as well. So it sounds like Joanna and I have both taught not just, regular clients in the community, but also lawyers as well. When we do webinars for bar organizations, bar associations, there's lawyers out there who want to learn different areas of law. Like, I've been to a criminal law webinar myself just to learn a little bit about the system, because in family law, we handle domestic violence and we handle restraining orders. And sometimes that crosses the line and gets into the criminal realm.
And just to touch on what we were talking about, what are you good at, and identifying those practice areas and getting specific. Some of the driving decisions behind what I do is, what's the impact going to be on the client? Is there a problem that I'm identifying, and how can I find a solution to that problem and deliver it? What is the gap that I'm trying to fill? So when I think about practice area, I'm thinking just my general, broad criminal defense practice, right? But the importance of getting specific versus general topics is that it's more in line with oftentimes what people are looking for. Yes, some people kind of want that 101 introductory type overview just for the familiarity, kind of like what we were talking about with my 6-part series on family law and your webinar, attending a webinar in criminal law. That's helpful for just like that basic knowledge base. But when you're trying to grow within the practice, and when you're really trying to help people with a particular issue, or niche down your practice to specific, whether it's I want to just do writs and appeals, or I just want to do post-conviction, or I only want to handle felony cases, you're able to start seeking out people who are putting on area-specific presentations. And so that's what I like to focus on, rather than just the broad scope, which is helpful. Researching an issue so much that people are going to come, when people think post-conviction relief, they think of Joanna. They think Joanna has done this. She's been successful with it. Her firm takes these cases on. She's created networks with immigration attorneys. She goes to immigration offices and teaches on this. She is an advocate for, those people who are underrepresented. Like, she's the go-to person for this. That's why I get specific. And the same thing with, when I speak about business topics, I've spent probably about, at this point, 4 years or so, investing a lot of time and money and energy being coached on the business side. And I've done so much coaching in various ways, or received so much coaching in various ways, that now I am at a point and where my firm has grown exponentially. I've been nationally recognized for the growth of my firm. I have absorbed so much information that I am confident in sharing that information with other people. And I know that this is what I'm good at. I understand it. I don't know if it's because I've got the undergrad in finance and multinational business that, the numbers and the analytics and nerding out on spreadsheets has always just kind of been my thing. But how can I take that and teach it to lawyers who typically have an aversion to spreadsheets and numbers, so that they are measuring and they're, following their metrics and enabling them and empowering them to grow their firms in a way that I've been able to grow my firm. So those are the kind of things that I have established as, okay, you know what, this is what I'm good at. Knowing that if I'm up there and somebody asks, we talk about answering odd questions. If somebody asks a question that is very, because oftentimes you'll get questions that are very specific, and, knowing how to handle that, whether, we're taking it offline and saying, that's a great question, let me follow up and answer it for you later, or answering it in the moment and being prepared and confident that I know this area well enough that if I get something that I wasn't prepared for, I'm prepared, I am ready to answer it off the cuff, just because of the knowledge base that's already instilled in me.
And just like, you mentioned the business law, if there's like an area that I definitely don't cover, like, for example, tax law. I'm not a tax attorney and I don't give any tax advice, but a lot of times when I'm giving a business law webinar, people are going to have very specific questions about tax. Like, okay, what are the tax savings when it comes to, filing an S Corp versus a C Corp or an LLC? So I have to tell them from the get-go and give them a disclaimer that I'm not a tax professional and I'm not here to give tax advice. That way they know it from the beginning, and it will prevent, some of the odd, awkward questions from being answered that I'm not comfortable answering, because I give them that disclaimer right up front. Just like Joanna said, or webinars, they don't have to be specific in the legal arenas that we specialize in. It can be anything, any experience that, that we've gained over years of working as an attorney, whether it's like a webinar on how to run a law practice, right? Because as an owner and founder of a law practice, we're honing so many skills that regular lawyers don't have, whether it's like starting the business or exiting a business, or how to do marketing for clients, how to shift marketing during COVID. Like I just did a webinar recently about marketing, and it was in conjunction with some marketing professionals, not even lawyers,
Right.
because as a business owner, you deal with marketing probably more than like some of the legal issues, how to like maintain a positive team culture, hiring and firing, a lot of that kind of stuff. And then also like, because I do family law, we specialize in mediation too. So I'll do seminars on how to get along with your partner, how to have a successful marriage, how to perform active listening, those kind of things that are not even legal related, but they bring so much benefit to the community. And then I've had feedback where people are like, wow, you're a divorce lawyer, but you're giving advice on how to make a marriage work, and how to have parents work together to co-parent and all the things that mediation comes with. And they actually build trust in me when I share those topics, even though it might not necessarily be bringing me clients and, helping me, make profit per se, but I rather be there helping the community and having couples get along for the sake of their children and for themselves and have less stress than to like have a nasty divorce battle in court,
Exactly. I want to say, like, you made such a great point about trust, right? Which that's the whole point of this. What are you good at, and what are you spending your time talking about? Something that you're building that trust within the community, that people know, like, we know, like, and trust Elizabeth. We're going to go to her, or we're going to refer things to her because she's honest and she has integrity. It's not about just taking your money to do a divorce. She's actually out here talking about how you can avoid a divorce. And I think that's really important, because oftentimes people are just so distrusting of attorneys in general. And, especially when money is involved, there's just like this tendency to clam up and be like, I don't know if I can trust you. I feel like they liken us to car dealers sometimes. So I think, putting forward that kind of content where I'm sharing this because this is what I've learned. And, if you learn it, it might help you. And if it doesn't help you, I'm still here.
Exactly. Yeah, I think our intentions will come off in our teachings, and it'll just let everybody know, like, we're just here trying to share our knowledge, trying to make the world a better place by conveying what we've learned along the way to others, so that either they don't make the same mistakes, or they can improve a lot quicker in their lives. And what goes around comes around. So when I do these webinars, I'm not coming at it from an angle that I'm expecting anything out of it, or I'm expecting, clients to call me afterwards. If no clients call me, that's perfectly fine. I'm just putting this information and goodwill out there into the world. Some success stories that have come around. I'll give an example of an estate planning webinar that I did. I was doing it, just to share with people the advantages about creating a will and a trust. And my first webinar in the life insurance office, I had no idea what to expect. I was like, these people are here because, they want to buy life insurance. And, the agent invited me and said, I think these people will benefit from your estate planning webinar and this, this information. From that, so many people called me afterwards wanting to set up a will and set up their trust. And then also, like, even if they weren't ready to do it, they referred other people to do it. But that was like not my expectation to begin with. I didn't seek out this opportunity. It was just someone asking me to do them a favor. They wanted to help out their clients, and I said yes. And a lot of good came from that. And then they ended up sending me the recording of my video. And since then, I've been able to send that link to a lot of my current clients because it did cover a lot of good information. And I don't have the time to, spend an hour sharing this information with every single client that comes in my door, but I can spend a minute just sending them the link and they can watch it. And, they love this webinar. They're able to forward it to their friends and family that they think can benefit from it. And, I've gotten a lot of good feedback just by doing my friend a favor. So that's a positive experience that I want to share.
Yeah. And I'm glad you shared something that was like when you were first starting out, you mentioned, it was one of your first webinars that you did in that practice area. And it makes me think we all have to start somewhere, right? And that's the whole point of this. Why do you want to teach? And this whole series on establishing how to put on great content and good MCLEs for other people. One of the the success stories I'll share is actually something that I first started out with too. And I remember it stemmed from, I was teaching a boot camp. And at the time, the topic of sex offender registration came up. And I remember specifically stating, just based on my research, that there is only one way to get off the sex offender registry, which is through a certificate of rehabilitation and or a pardon with the governor's office for certain sex crimes. And I recall one of my co-panelists who was in a judicial position. So it was very, now in hindsight, I'm like, wow, you never know who knows what. I recall that person stating like, no, there's no way to get off the sex offender registry. And that really like ignited something in me because I was like, am I wrong about my research? Like, let me look into this and let me try it. So from there, I actually did my first attempt to remove somebody from the registry based on the research that I did in this like kind of esoteric area of the law in post-conviction relief, and kind of diving into that and really learning how to do it well. I had somebody who, they were 19 years old at the time of their conviction, and it was something that placed them on the sex offender registry for life. Wrong chat room, wrong time with an undercover agent that was pretending to be a 15-year-old girl. And the doing this work doesn't necessarily mean that you condone the behavior, but after 20 some odd years of a 19-year-old having to register for something they did when they were still a young adult, and that didn't, that wasn't your typical thought of what a sex crime may be. We were in contact with them, and we were able to successfully submit a certificate of rehabilitation for them that did get granted. And from there, that grant served as an automatic application for pardon with the governor's office, and we were able to successfully remove them from the sex offender registry, this lifetime requirement. The law is changing next year in terms of it becoming a tiered system for for certain sex crimes. But at this time, several years ago, this was the only way to pursue this. And it was life-changing for this person who had spent many years of their adult life registering as a sex offender for something they did as a 19-year-old, and being able to give them essentially a fresh start after proving that they had been rehabilitated. Had I not taken the time to delve deeper into that comment that was made and taken the time to really question, somebody else's interpretation of the law, and invested that research energy and, just inquisitiveness into this subject matter, it would not have resulted in that life-changing moment for him. And that is, for me, a huge success story, because it's like you have these opportunities to really learn an area of practice. And by just being curious and taking some time and reading up on material, you can actually contribute to substantial impact and change in people's lives. And so that for me, super success story, and kind of helped me enter into the world of post-conviction relief as well.
That's an amazing story. And just to add something that just came to mind to that, I've heard that, the best way to learn something is to teach it, right? They say, like, if you read about something, you learn like 20% of whatever you read. If you write about it, you might learn like 30%, or if you like interact and do some activities about it, you might learn more like 50%. But you'll learn the most when you're actually doing the teaching. So I've actually found out when I'm teaching something, just like you said, I actually learned from it myself. I learned when I'm doing some research, I'll learn something that I didn't before, like when I was preparing for the webinar of how COVID has affected family law. I went and searched up some news articles, and I learned even more when I'm prepping to teach and during the teaching.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so establishing subject matter expertise, we can go and talk about some helpful tips, research, experience, studying changes in the law, bar and section involvement, and also attending MCLEs and listening to others. Do you want to start with this, Joanna?
Yeah, sure. So this is kind of like what we were talking about briefly before, where how are you going to establish this firm knowledge base that you're not just competent, but confident enough to go forward and teach other people? And I know, for me, it really comes down to the researching aspect of it. And I will sit with the penal code. It's actually right over there, but I want the penal code open on my desk and reading how the amendments are going to go into effect for the next year, and how that's restructuring, for instance, sex offender registration. Okay, what category of crimes is this going to fall under? Making my own little charts so that I'm prepared for the questions that are going to be coming from potential new clients, or when I go to do a new style of petition, I've done the requisite research to be armed with that information. And I also know that my post-conviction MCLE that I teach for the that state bar approved, it is going to need to be updated according to these changes in the law. So I don't want to just rely on stale information and be like, oh yeah, well, I've got this 2020 MCLE that I've been teaching that's going to be good for 2021. It's actually not. I know for a fact it's not going to be, and I need to be prepared to change it. So studying changes in the law, I know for our industry specifically, the California Public Defenders Association sends out weekly updates regarding cases that have had significant changes or significant laws that have passed that we need to be aware of those holdings. And usually there's a big packet at the beginning of the year that comes out with all of the new laws that passed for the prior year that we need to be aware of going forward. And just really taking the time to read case law makes such a huge difference because, especially in my industry, we'll get calls from family members of prisoners, and incarcerated individuals spend a lot of time reading on new bills that have passed and new laws that are coming out, and their family members will call and be like, my brother wants to know whether or not SB 620 applies to him, and we're like, okay, I need to be armed with information to know what SB 620 is and be able to answer that, because it's like, you don't want to appear like you don't stay on top of changes, right? You don't want to be the last person crossing the finish line, essentially, especially if lay people can do it and stay on top of that. This is our job. Our job is to be confident in the field. And then if we're trying to establish this subject matter expertise, we really need to be vigilant about doing it. So those are some of the things that I use. Of course, bar and section involvement. As I mentioned before, I have been a longtime member of the Bar Association here in Alameda County, participating within individual sections, attending other section meetings, which I've found helpful as a liaison because I'm the board of directors. I'm on the board of directors. I am a liaison for specifically the immigration section, which is actually very useful for me in my practice because there's so much crossover with criminal law. So those type of things and listening to the conversations they have, even though it's not my specific practice area, helps me develop as a teacher and helps develop my practice area. And I do attend MCLEs and listen to others. I think that's huge. As we mentioned before, attending a family law series or attending an immigration series, I will do those things mainly to know, like, are there any collateral consequences that are going to happen that will affect other areas of practice, and how do we handle that? And just listening to others, not just for purposes of learning for our practice area, but picking up on styles and ways that people present that I might want to incorporate or I might want to avoid. You might go to some place and be like, I'm never doing that in one of my presentations. Or you see somebody and you're like, that was really cool. I remember attending something one time, and in order to collect information, they were able to use an app called Textly, and it sent something out, and it was like, if you're interested in learning more, download here. You put your email in, it collects the information from everybody who attended. And so being able to incorporate like something like that, that will have residual effects in terms of networking on the back end, it was a really good lesson for me. Like, oh, wow, this was creative, and it was a simple way to gather information. So those are some of the things that I do to build myself up as a teacher.
It's super important to keep up to date with all the changes that are going on in the law year after year or month after month. And, the modern technology makes research so simple for us nowadays. Like back in the day, attorneys had to go and look up law books and go to the legal library to look up new case law and information, like get the newspaper. Now everything's just online. It's like you can Google like top 10 patent case case law in 2020, and a bunch of articles are going to come up. So it's just about putting together what you feel like is most important in this arena. Law 360 is one of the newsletters I subscribe to, and they've got all the constant laws that are changing every year. They send that on a daily basis. So I see all the different articles every day, and I'm able to add that to my presentations to share with clients, what's different. Like for my estate planning seminar, the tax exemption is different year after year. Like this year, it's 11 million. A couple years ago, before the Trump administration, it was like 5 million for the tax exemption limits. So people want to know that. 2 years ago, or 5 years ago, when I created my trust, this was what was in place, and now this has changed, and this is why I need to go and update my trust. And then in terms of patent law, whenever things change, inventors want to know, business owners want to know, but it's very easy to keep up with the law nowadays. Bar and section involvement, just like Joanna, I'm here in LA County, so I'm involved with the LA County Bar Association, and they have the family law section that I'm subscribed to, the IP law section, and all the different attorneys and folks that are in that section, they're constantly sending emails to each other saying, oh, did you see, this new ruling came out, or this happened in the industry, and then we're able to share that with our clients. If someone is doing a presentation that I specialize in, I actually want to sign up for that, because every time I do that, I learn something new that's not already in my presentation or already in my knowledge base, and I'm able to add that to my presentations when I present it later on. And, just like Joanna said, it's not even about the content sometimes, it's about presentation styles, like what they're wearing, how they're speaking, and just by watching other speakers, you learn a lot about what to do and what not to do.
Really, that's true. And I think that's a great segue into our lessons learned and helpful tips section. These are some of the takeaways that we have put together in terms of how we have improved our presentations over time. One of the things that I have definitely found valuable is actually reviewing evaluation forms and trying to incorporate that feedback into changes in the presentation. So, oftentimes you'll get an evaluation form and it's all 5s, but there's comments on there. And the comments are like, I remember one time I got a comment that said, I wish there was more information on the PowerPoints, which is interesting, because most of the time people want less information on the PowerPoint because it can get kind of bogged down with too much content. And I was like, all right, how can I incorporate this feedback with keeping the PowerPoints clean, but at the same time giving more value in the hard copies that people are taking home? So I went home and I actually revamped the PowerPoint so that it would be a bit more engaging from the perspective of, even if you weren't taking copious notes, you could still look at this and get an overview of what was discussed and some of the key points in there. So just like reviewing the evaluation forms, positive and negative, you want to take that feedback and really see how you can improve upon it. And then, continuing to update those PowerPoints and presentations is very important. Sometimes we get comfortable with what we've already built and say, like I was giving the example of, my 2020 PowerPoint on post-conviction relief, I know I'm going to have to update it. I know the law is changing. I'm going to go in there. I'm going to update the law. But in addition to that, looking through the whole thing and not just, oh, there's a change in law in this area and I'm going to change this one specific thing, just seeing like, should I freshen up the look? Should I change any other aspect of this? Is there a way to make it more engaging for the audience? So being mindful of that in the presentations. And I know you had some great tips on PowerPoints as well, Elizabeth.
Yeah, absolutely. So, everyone knows, like, for PowerPoint, you don't want to put too much text on the screen because, the audience ends up reading what's on there rather than listening. And then, they can't multitask and do both at the same time. So it becomes overwhelming. So my tip for the PowerPoint is, you leave your presentations, just the basic words that are needed so that, there's the basic bullet points. And then what I do is I have a separate PDF document that has all of the material that I've presented with everything that I've said. And then at the end of my presentation, I will give the audience an opportunity to email me. And then once they email me and request for that PDF, then I will email that PDF to them. And then they will have all the information so they can refer back on it afterwards. And the benefit of that is they've started the engagement with you. You know, once they've emailed you, you have their contact information. You can, you know, add them to your newsletter or your email list, you know, or you can start the conversations with them and ask them like, oh, why did you attend the seminar? You know, is there any other question? Are there any other questions I can answer for you? You know, do you want to, you know, start working on a patent application, you know, or do you need some advice on your family law case? It just opens up that conversation and it builds on the relationship. Whereas if it was just a webinar with like 100 people, it's hard to build the relationship at that point, right? So don't put too much text on the screen, but have something afterwards. It's like a gift that you're offering each and every member of the audience, and you can email that to them at the end. And every time I've done that, I've gotten a ton of emails afterwards asking for the free gift, you know, the PDF. And you just have to make sure you're responsive too. Don't promise it and then not deliver. You know, if you promise it, give it to them, and then they'll remember you, because that gift, they're not going to delete that email, right? They're not going to delete that PDF. It's got so much valuable information in it. And when people see value in something, they're going to hold on to it and remember you. You know, here are some additional tips that are great for webinars. So using handouts, especially when you're doing in-person presentations, if you use handouts, you know, it allows people to write on it and answer questions. It becomes more interactive. So just like, you know, that percentage thing I mentioned earlier, when they're writing things down or interacting, they actually retain a lot of the information a lot more, rather than just listening to a speaker speak or, you know, reading something. Writing it and interacting is really helpful. So the handouts, it's best if it's not just text, but there's actually like blanks for them to fill out. Like I attend an annual family law a whole day information session in Orange County for family law practitioners. And it talks about all of the new family law case updates, you know, the changes in the law, what are some new rulings that has happened in the last year. And then it'll have handouts with blanks so that when you're learning, you're filling out the blanks as you go along. And just like filling out those blanks, even though it's like pretty self-explanatory, it enhances the learning environment, and the audience members are able to like retain the information a lot better. So using handouts is a great tip. Using sign-up sheets is, you know, it's a must actually for MCLE webinars, because if you want the attorneys to have credit, you know, they have to sign up in order to get to maintain that record. But even if the webinar or seminar that you're doing is not offering MCLE credit, it's still good to have sign up sheets so that you know who's attending your seminars. You can ask them to provide contact information to stay in touch. You can ask them if they're a lawyer or a non-lawyer, what background they come from, just to see like, you know, who's interested in your seminars and who you're talking to. So sign-up sheets are great. For LinkedIn connections, there's a great tip that I use. So if you go on your LinkedIn, and this only works if you're in the same room as each other, because it has to do with close proximity. There's a button on there that will help you find all the people that are near you and add all of them. So whenever I'm doing a live seminar, I'll teach people how to go on that link, and then they're all of a sudden able to see everyone in the same room on their LinkedIn and add all the new connections immediately without having to search for each person's name.
Impactful doing that, especially in such a large room, and when people haven't experienced that before, and you do, and everyone's like, wow, this person, because I just, when I taught on networking at the Bear Women Lawyers Retreat, it was something that was done there. And it was like, okay, this panelist of people who are up here teaching about networking just taught me how to connect with everybody in the room and actually, you know, and then follow up on that. And so it has an impact, especially when you want to reinforce the trust that you've built about your subject matter area.
Yeah. When they learn a new tip, and especially if it's something they can then share with their colleagues, and when they do presentations, they'll remember you because you're the one who gave them that information to begin with. Like, I learned this from another speaker, and I'll never forget that speaker, because now I'm able to use the same tip over and over again. And then another tip, for an in-room presentation is also having a QR code on your PowerPoint. People can just lift up their phones and scan the QR code on the spot, and then it'll link them to wherever you want, to link them. So in this case, this person was doing a marketing presentation, and it linked us to their Yelp page. And he's like, yeah, if you guys have some time, feel free to leave me a Yelp review regarding how I did on my marketing topic, and how you like this presentation. And all of a sudden he got like a bunch of Yelp reviews just for doing a webinar, and they're legitimate Yelp reviews because they're, giving feedback on how he presented his marketing topic. So I learned that too. I created my QR code, and you can link it to, getting more likes on your Facebook, or, having them follow you in your newsletter, entering their email address, whatever it is. It's so cool. You just lift up your phone and you scan the QR code right there on the big screen. Yeah, and then of course, being flexible, responding to questions. If there's anything you're not comfortable talking about, have that disclaimer up front, so they don't ask any questions that you're not comfortable with. But also, like, responding to questions in a way, like, I always, whenever I respond to a question, I like to end with, "Did I answer your question?" Because then the audience feels like, okay, you know what, she really wants to make sure my question is answered, rather than just giving me some random information. So I'll ask them, did I answer your question? And then I can get clarification as to whether the question was answered, or if they have some follow-up for me, so we can make sure their questions are cleared up. And then, of course, I don't like following a script ever in any presentation. I feel like if I'm just reading a script, it'll put everybody to sleep. And I don't like, watching a presentation where someone feels like, they're just reading off script. So I just go with the flow, and then, feel where the energy is going, and then stay confident in all of the material that I'm presenting.
Yeah, I think that's really important. Just, having a plan going forward, right? Like, here's the plan, here's the agenda, we've got a PowerPoint, these are the things that we're going to talk about. But these topics that we're discussing are likely going to raise some questions. People are going to want to have conversation about it, and we need to be able to be flexible and knowledgeable enough to respond to those appropriately. Every now and then, I think it's important to address that there will be somebody in the audience who will ask a question that's either very, very case specific, or you just need far more information than what they're providing. And it might be something that you'll want to encourage them to ask later and take offline. So having that exit strategy and saying, this sounds like a great question. How about we connect after this, because it's a lengthier response for purposes of this engagement that we're doing, but I'd love to follow up with you. Also, just making sure that they're not sharing any like confidential information or personal information in the room that may come back to, if it turns into representation, may come back to harm them in the long run. So also helping people protect themselves. That's usually in the situation where you might be speaking to the community at large versus an audience of lawyers.
Allowing the audience to ask questions, and there's some material that you didn't cover that they want to ask, and you got to be respectful of the entire audience too. Just like Joanna said, if they're asking a question that requires too much time to get in depth with, I love that answer that you just gave. Like, let's take it offline. Here's my contact information. Pass out your business card, and allow anyone who's in this webinar to call later to ask questions one-on-one. And again, that's going to develop your relationship with them. Getting feedback forms are great. we come from constant growth and wanting improvement. So feedback that, allows us to make the next presentation even better. What are other topics people want to listen to, and we can incorporate that into our presentation. Providing contact information, which is on our next and final slide. We're both going to provide our email address. And then, of course, responding to follow-ups. Don't ask for follow-ups and then just ignore them, because they're going to be like, wait, you asked us to follow up, and then now you're just being non-responsive. So whoever you are in that presentation, make sure you are that same person out of that presentation. Right. And then connecting with the attendees, whether emailing them through the sign-up sheets, saying, hey, thank you for attending my webinar today. I hope you found it useful. If you need any further information from us, feel free to contact us anytime.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, at this point, we've covered everything on why we want to teach, how we're establishing our subject matter expertise, helpful tips and tricks and lessons learned from, our success stories and experiences in the past. And then ultimately, how are we going to be concluding? And we want to practice what we preach. So if there are any questions or there's more information that you desire, feel free to contact us by reaching out to us via email, and both of our informational email addresses are provided on the slide here. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you for joining in. And Elizabeth, thank you for participating in this as well.
Thank you so much, Joanna. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in today.
Great. Thank you, Elizabeth and Joanna. I thought that was a great program, and you did a great job of highlighting why, if you are an attorney, you should consider teaching, not just to learn more about your practice area and become an expert, but also to market your brand and grow it. So as I mentioned when we initially started, that the point of this collaboration with CMCP was to host these programs live so that people who are interested in learning how to teach CLEs have an opportunity to network with our speakers, and also to just have an opportunity to meet them, ask questions from them. And unfortunately, because of the times we live in, we can't do that right now. So we figured we would still should facilitate a Q&A session with the speakers, so that any of you who are interested in getting to know them more, have any follow-up questions, or just, just general questions about teaching, this is a good opportunity for you to ask both Joanna and Elizabeth. And then also, Arzu and myself, since we also do this for a living. So with that, I am going to go ahead and open the questions. Just a reminder that please pose your questions via the chat box, and then Arzu and I will be posing them to the speakers in the order we receive them. And I believe, Arzu, you have the first question, correct?
I do. I think I should mention that he has a question, but I don't think he has put it in the chat box yet. But I do have a question for both speakers. What would you say, Joanna and Elizabeth, what would you say is the biggest challenge and the hurdle that minority lawyers face today?
I guess I can start. So I would say the biggest hurdle that minority business owners face today is getting your name out, having a personal branding in a way that people will come to you, whether it's the same language clients or even, just any language clients. But basically branding yourself in a way that attracts clients of all backgrounds and ethnicities, regardless of what your own gender and background is.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Joanna?
So I think one of the biggest challenges sometimes is some of the preconceived notions that people may have about minorities in general, or what I've encountered oftentimes is just like a cross over of issues, being a woman, being young presenting, being a woman of color, and having to sometimes prove that there is a skill behind what I'm offering, that sometimes I don't think others may have to prove. So and I say that from experience, having to present my diplomas to people before, being asked like, well, you know where are all your certificates? I'm like, well, we're meeting in my conference room, but if you'd really like to see all the diplomas on my wall, I can show you. So just having to overcome some of those things at times, but making sure that the marketing message that we're putting out there for the firm is very clear. What you see is what you get. And that what we deliver behind it is in line with what we are branding.
If I may, I want to mention something. Joanna, when you and I were invited to testify before the ABA task force, I remember you said something about when they call the Nieves law firm, they ask for your dad.
Well, it was a very specific situation. Yeah, I had a potential new client on the phone who thought that I was working for my father, when they found out, oh, I'm speaking to Joanna Nieves of the Nieves law firm. They're like, oh, do you work for your dad? And I was like, no, it's my firm. And the person was like, oh, so you're a partner? I'm like, no, it's my firm. So even things like that, just, of course, that's somebody who couldn't see me, didn't know what I looked like, but knew that I was a woman on the other end. And yeah, that task force that we testified in front of, it was women in criminal justice, and just talking about some of the challenges that you faced, whether it's as a woman of color or just a woman in general. But there's several ways that this manifests itself. I've had encounters in the courtroom before where I've been stopped from passing the bar. Hey, I need to see your business card. I need to see your bar license or check it. Or even you can't come in before 8:30 because it's for attorneys only. And it's like, well, I'm an attorney. You're welcome. So it happens, and just knowing how to kind of assert yourself in those situations in a professional way, but definitely, standing your ground.
Great, thank you. We have a question from Robert. Robert asks, do you think very short video presentations, that is micro learning, can be helpful to clients and to getting new clients?
I can definitely.
And that's for either of you. Yeah.
Oh, thanks. So Robert, I definitely think that is helpful. We make a lot of short YouTube videos answering FAQs. I think we touched upon it in the presentation that you just watched, but I've had several people contact me saying, I saw your video on YouTube and I was searching for this and I found the answer here. And so I wanted to talk to you. Or they come in. I had somebody a couple months ago who was just like, they couldn't believe they were talking to me. They were treating me like I was a celebrity because they watched all my YouTube videos. And I think it is very helpful in getting new clients. And you can take one subject and break it down into a series. So very short, like 2-minute videos on, search and seizure, which can go on forever and ever, right? Or breaking down, DUIs. We've done series on just FSTs alone and different videos on, okay, here's a video on the one leg stand. Here's a video about the walk and turn. And so you can break it down in easy to digest chunks that keeps people coming back.
For me, I agree with what Joanna said. Short videos nowadays are sometimes more effective than longer videos, especially with everybody's short time attention span in today's day and age. Like as we're scrolling through social media, like we pause maybe like not even a second on each post before moving to the next. So if there's like a 1-hour video, I don't know how many people are actually going to watch it. Folks are heading towards TikTok, right? Looking at those short videos, even like YouTube videos, like Joanna said, they're not very long nowadays. The shorter ones are, typically, in my opinion, more helpful, and they get more views than the long ones do.
Okay,
Thank you.
so thank you so much. We have a question from Ashud, who I actually know. Ashud is our CB contributor. So Ashud is asking, when I speak for bar associations, they are in control of the sign-up sheets. And then I have asked if I can get that information. The response is no. Have either Joanna or Elizabeth run up against the same resistance? Any suggestions to overcome such an objection?
I have not run into that particular issue, but that's probably because the suggestion I'm about to give, I bring my own sign-up sheet. And so I set out a sign-up sheet. I set up my my business cards, and nobody can take away my information if I'm the one that's collecting it. So that may be the reason that I've never run into it. So that's what my suggestion would be for overcoming it.
Yeah,
So
same
you
here
would
too.
be,
I haven't had that experience before, but typically I don't ask for the sign-up sheets either, right? Because like my purpose for doing these talks is to share information and not necessarily to reach out to the attendees afterwards. I actually rarely reach out to the attendees afterwards. I'll give my information, at the end of my session on the PowerPoint slides with my email address and my phone number. And I usually give some kind of freebie so that the audience would be motivated to contact me themselves rather than the other way around. Like if I'm doing an estate planning seminar, at the end, I will tell the audience that I have an estate planning questionnaire that will help you figure out what to prepare as you're, getting your estate planning documents done. You'll know what kind of information to gather, and then they'll just email me and say, hey, this is, I went to your webinar. Can you send this to me? And then all of a sudden I have their information.
So, and one thing to follow up on with what Elizabeth just said is that I think it really depends on the purpose of the marketing or the presentation that you're doing. So yes, you're giving away the information. I totally agree with that. I think it's also important to stay top of mind with people, and marketing the business and ongoing branding is very important for anybody that has their own firm. So for me, collecting the information, and I think Ashad, that's probably what you're referring to, is collecting the information for future follow-up for purposes of staying top of mind. And so on my sign-up sheets, I do include a portion that says like, do you want to be added to our newsletter? And you can check yes, or you can write no or whatever. And then they can be added to our monthly newsletter. Another thing that I've done, this wasn't for a bar association, and I briefly mentioned it in the presentation that you watched, was I incorporated the text. It's almost like a text to give thing, right? Text here, and you collect the information, but you're providing something in return. So like Elizabeth was saying, you have that inbound contact, and then you're able to collect the emails, add them to the newsletter, because they can, confirm it, or, give their permission for it. And then with that, you can pass on whatever PDF or white paper that you've created for them.
That's great.
Great. So this next question is from me. This is something that the program's attorneys, we often ask each other these questions, and I was curious to get both of your opinions on it. It's a broader question. And so I wanted to ask, can teaching and doing more public speaking events help dispel some of the biases that POCs face in the legal industry? And then from your perspective, has it helped you better connect with your audience?
When I do my presentations, I think that the information I share does dispel these biases. Sometimes I will actually do slides on certain myths to dispel. For example, in the family law industry, a lot of people think that mothers can get custody more easily than fathers can, right? So I would use my family law webinars to dispel these myths that are pretty prominent in the world, amongst other myths. That was just one example.
Great, thanks.
Joanna?
So for me, I do think it helps with preconditioning that, and that's part of the reason that I do a lot of things that I do, which is when a client, a potential new client is coming to the firm, I want them to know ahead of time what to expect. And it's not just, you know, what to expect with who you're working with, but also what to expect with how you're going to interact with us, how you're going to communicate with us, how do we speak, what is the vibe of the office. And so I think that these public speaking events and, you know, YouTube videos, all the things that we're talking about really help with that post, you know, pre-engagement glide path, right? And then of course, then we're going to be doing a post-engagement after we've concluded their case. But it's just, you see it, you know it, you like it, because a lot of these people, especially right now, are calling in and hiring over the phone. Right? Sometimes they might be hiring virtually if that's the way you do your practice. But for years, and COVID luckily didn't put a stop to the way that we brought clients on. We have since day one onboarded people completely electronically by phone, and then electronic welcome packets and so on. And so part of the way I get people in such dire situations where they're facing criminal charges to trust me, to trust my firm, is to have a presence out there that they see, okay, she's a genuine person. She's disseminating this information. I can trust her, and therefore, you know, I'm a little bit more comfortable in a very uncomfortable situation. So I do think it helps dispel a lot of things, including biases in the legal industry, and it gives your competitors an opportunity to see, hey, and not just competitors, but your counterparts as well, an opportunity to see like, this is what they're putting out there. This is their unique value proposition. I might not, you know, I'm not going to mimic their style because it's really true to them. And here, let me take some pointers and find a way to like incorporate my own style into what I'm doing. So that's helpful as well.
That's awesome.
Yeah, just want to add, sorry, Arzu, just want to add, I think that's a great point. I wanted to highlight what Joanna mentioned, that oftentimes as attorneys, we hear the phrase, set client expectations early. And we think of that just in terms of, you know, the services that we will be providing these clients, but also to be able to set, you know, expectations in terms of the interaction, who you are, the personality of your firm. I think that those are all really important points that Joanna is highlighting. So yeah, that's a great point. Sorry, go ahead, Arju.
Thank you, Raheel. So Shoot is asking, towards the end of the video, there was a suggestion on how to use LinkedIn to connect with attendees. I'm still not sure if I understand how to use LinkedIn in the matter suggested. Can you review that again here? And that was a really great suggestion, both Elizabeth and Joanna. Would you please go over that?
Go ahead, Elizabeth.
Yeah, so there's a difference between in-person events and virtual events. For in-person events, there was a way where if you go to My Network on LinkedIn, you can click Find Nearby, turn it on, and then you'd be able to find everyone who's around you. And those people's LinkedIn profiles will automatically populate, and you could just add everybody who's in the same room because it looks at the distance. Right now with virtual events, what I do is when I attend a Zoom webinar, and it doesn't even have to be one that I'm speaking at, I'll just go and you see everyone's names is on here. You just go on LinkedIn and you type each person's name and you just add them. You know, like for Facebook, I only add people I know, you know, folks I've met before, my friends. But for LinkedIn, I want to expand my network as wide as possible. So I'm adding any kind of professionals out there, whether or not I've met them in person. So all these, like Zoom is amazing because you get to see the person's first and last name. So you can just go on LinkedIn and add everybody, you know, whereas if you go to an in-person event, maybe their name tag only has their first name, or maybe they're not even wearing a name tag. So nowadays you can see everybody's full name.
Joanna, do you have anything to add to that?
Not to the specific question, because like Elizabeth said, you have to be in the same room to do it. And I think she explained it pretty well. So I don't have anything to add.
Thank you.
Great. So the next question, I believe both of you mentioned that you are owners of your own law firms. And so what are your hiring practices as minority-owned law firms for hiring minority staff?
For me specifically, obviously we don't hire based on whether or not someone is a minority, but we're in Monterey Park, San Gabriel Valley, and we cater heavily to clients who are Chinese speakers. And so one of the criteria in my hiring practice is I need to find staff and attorneys who are fluent in Mandarin or Cantonese in order to speak with our clients in those languages. And so it's been difficult to find, Chinese speaking attorneys and legal assistants. So when they do come in the door, they definitely get priority when we are looking to hire and interview them.
I think that's a fair answer, and we do something very similar. We hire the best candidate for the role based on, our measures of performance and what their experience is, what we're looking for. But oftentimes the ads that we're posting are for people who speak a particular language. So ours is Spanish speaking preferred because we do have a lot of Spanish speaking clients, especially because of our PCR practice. And so that tends to deliver a certain type of candidate, but it's mainly because it services the needs of the firm and the clients.
And just to add to that, one of my previous jobs was working as a immigration attorney at API Legal Outreach, which is this Asian nonprofit based out of the Bay Area. And one of the things that was the most difficult thing for us was to find bilingual attorneys that were fluent in Southeast Asian languages. So as both of you highlighted, that's a huge need in the legal community. And so I would encourage, and I'm sure most of you know this, but if you are bilingual, please highlight that, because that is something that is sorely needed in the legal community, in terms of all languages. So thank you for pointing that out. Arzu, do we have any other questions?
No, but I do have, if you have time, I do want to ask something. And I think we still have a few more minutes. And I've known, I know both these ladies, and I'm very proud of all they've achieved. I've known Joanna from before she started her law firm, and I've seen her start her law firm from scratch and grow it to the great, I call it an empire, honestly, to the great law firm that it is today. And I'm asking this of both of you, Joanna and Elizabeth, knowing that as minority female attorneys of color, there are challenges and hurdles. What motivated you to start your own practice? And did you take any steps prior to starting, or did you just dive into it?
For me, I decided to start my own practice mainly because of work-life balance. I came from the big law industry where we were required to bill 2,000 plus hours a year. And when I had my daughter back in 2009, the first year, I barely got to see her. My nanny would be the one raising my child for me. And I decided something had to change, that otherwise my children were going to grow up with a nanny as a mother. So that's why I left the big law field and started my own practice. So now I have the flexibility of taking care of my family along with my clients.
For me, there was a very specific thing that happened, an experience at a firm that I was working for, where there was a really abrasive attorney, opposing counsel on the other end, who was, I'll get to this part soon, a very abrasive attorney who was, making sexual remarks towards myself and the staff, and just not being what I thought was professional and civil. And I took it to management and I was told not to rock the boat. And I felt that that was, I'm sorry guys. I felt that that was not the way that I would have handled that situation, you know, towards myself or the administrative staff that was also experiencing, you know, experiencing this person's tirades. So I decided that I was going to create something where I could give the level of support and, you know, deliver a type of management that I would appreciate receiving. And that's what I've tried to build here. That's what the culture is, you know, creating that circle of safety, creating a circle of trust, and making sure that people feel like they are valued here at the firm. With that said, the presentation you guys just watched, I was pregnant in it, and then I have her, she's 10 weeks old, and I value being able to take, you know, 2.5 months off. And right now I'm like integrating back into the office, but still taking time, still get to have her with me and do what I want, you know, outside of when the court demands time of me, do what I want within my practice and, you know, still enjoy having my first child and having her around with me. So those are some of the things that, I, you know, took into consideration when I started it, and something that I value now that I've built it and built it to a point that I have so many people here to support me, especially in a time when I needed to take a step back.
Thank you so much. And both you ladies do so many other things besides running your successful law firms. I know Elizabeth is a writer as well. She has 4 books, if I'm not mistaken, and she does a lot of presentations, and she's on boards, and Joanna and I have been on boards together, and she's on the ACBA board, and we were on the Judicial Evaluation Committee together, and she was our president. So on the side, you guys don't just run your successful businesses, but you also give back to the community as well, and we really appreciate that.
Yeah, I would echo everything that Arzu said. And I think the baby's telling us it's time to wrap this up. So unless anyone else has any questions, I think we should wrap it up. I will turn it over to Robert for the closing remarks. But just from our end, again, thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you, Joanna, for doing this. We appreciate it. And a reminder that we're hosting the second part of this series on the 28th, which will cover how to prepare and then deliver a CLE. So we encourage all of you, if you're interested in teaching CLEs, then please attend the second part on the 28th, and you can register through CMCP. And with that, I will turn it over to Robert. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think you are on mute, Robert.
I knew that I was testing you. Thank you so much, Raheel and our colleagues at CEB, and our great presenters today for a lot of really interesting educational content that we learned from as well. We really appreciate the work you put into it. Big thanks to my team, Leela, and Leah and Garrett for their help and putting this on, and look forward to seeing you in a couple weeks for the next component. And meanwhile, also, please take a look at our website. We have a great program coming up next week on the 21st. We have 3 CLEs, one on legal ethics to get that kind of in your portfolio before the compliance period ends. Some really interesting programs on racism and mental health, and also on the experiences of Black and Brown attorneys. So looking forward to being in touch with you, and thank you so much for coming out for CMCP. Take care, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, everyone. And shout out to Leela. Thanks for organizing everything. We appreciate it. Bye.